Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Good news on recession front for the Bahamas. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 3rd August 2023. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. The Bahamas may be able to avoid a recession as fears begin to subside in the U.S., with some officials saying they see no indication of a once protracted recession in sight. More in this ZNS News item.
Governor of the Central Bank, John Rowles, says with the outlook geared towards a softer landing in the U.S. and other tourism markets, the prospects for the Bahamas has improved. Still, he says there are things to be aware of.
Because it means that those countries are standing a better chance of getting inflation under control without causing the economies to contract. And so that would mean that the negative impact on individuals' ability to spend or to plan for tourism and travel would be reduced to a great extent. So that's a good thing for the Bahamas. The point that is still important, which we've stressed, though, is that there are costs in tourism related to the cost of transportation and the cost of electricity when they come in country. And so we have to be mindful of how those would continue to impact the competitiveness of the product, even if individuals are not directly impacted to the same extent in their incomes.
Rowell adding that the economy continued to expand at a healthy rate, with the central bank anticipating above-average GDP growth around 3% for 2023. As for tourism, he says gains in that area continue to be driven by pent-up demands post-COVID-19 pandemic. While the sector benefited from appreciated stopover pricing at hotels and rental properties, Rowell says there's been some leveling off that could be attributed to limited room inventory.
Based on comparisons against the pre-pandemic highs and the best seasonal performance before Hurricane Dorian, sea arrivals, which largely represent cruise visitors, have exceeded the pre-pandemic highs by an average of 40% since December 2022. However, the comparative index has not trended further upward since February 2023. In addition, since January, the seasonal recovery in air arrivals stabilized on average just 2% below the pre-pandemic comparison, so that's almost equivalent to pre-pandemic levels. And over the first half of 2022, by comparison, air arrivals were still an average of 25% below pre-pandemic volumes, while the sea segment still trailed similar estimates by 22%.
In the meantime, Foreign Affairs Minister of the Bahamas, Fred Mitchell, responds to a Washington Post article which he deems unflattering to the archipelago.
Well, the Bahamas have been a smuggler's paradise for generations. Rum, cocaine, and increasingly people. That's a byline of a Washington Post article last week detailing the years-long human smuggling problem here. The article referenced the July 2022 Haitian capsizing episode that happened off New Providence, citing Royal Bahamas Defense Force stats that for the year, 1,736 migrants, over 1,200 of them Haitians, have been apprehended. The story also quotes National Security Minister, the Honorable Wayne Munro, rejecting claims that Bahamian authorities were taking bribes to ignore human smuggling, as well as Haitian activist Louis Georges and a 37-year-old New Providence resident impacted by the issue. The article even noted Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry's apology to the Bahamas that the Haitian people are losing hope in the future and are taking boats. We are really sorry that they affect the lives of the Bahamas, end quote. Foreign Affairs Minister, the Honorable Frederick Mitchell, lamented that the story is an analytical piece which described the Bahamas in pretty unflattering terms and is not balanced.
What occurs here in this country is structural in the sense that we live cheek and jowl next to a major market. There is a poor country named Haiti to the south of us, and a rich country to the north of us called the United States, and we're caught in between. We have a tourist economy, which must balance ease of entry as against immigration controls. And there is every indication that the Bahamas is fully cognizant of the public policy on smuggling and on trafficking in persons, and we adhere to all the international agreements. The Washington Post article should therefore be taken, in my view, with a grain of salt.
In other news, in a comprehensive 4-page press statement, Isat Buchanan, chairman of the People's National Party Human Rights Commission, urged the Director of Public Prosecutions in Jamaica, Paula Llewellyn, to secure her legacy and integrity by closing the door on her way out as she prepares to leave office in September 2023. Kimberly Henry of CVM Live filed this report.
With mounting tensions surrounding the extension of the Director of Public Prosecutions DPP term in office for a second time, the People's National Party Human Rights Commission has weighed in on the constitutional amendment, citing the major concern is the process by which it was done. Chairman of the Commission, Isat Buchanan, says it lacks mature consideration and consultation, which ruins the spirit of the Constitution.
We reject the statement that the purported bill has been in the pipeline for some 5 years, because what we have right before our eyes is a DPP with an extension who cannot receive a second extension, and certainly steps taken to circumvent the process. It should be rejected, and any attempts to mislead the public where this is concerned should be rejected.
Further defending the stance that the DPP should resign, Buchanan, in a 4-page press statement, said it would be interesting that the public receive the following information on the longest-serving DPP. 1. A copy of her extension. 2. A report on the effectiveness of her tenure compared to all other office holders. 3. An analysis of the effective conviction rate under her tenure compared to others. 4. A report on her implementation of the Muirhead Committee's recommendation. 5. A detailed justification of what she plans to accomplish in 2.5 years that could not have been accomplished in her record 15 years in the post. 6. An investigation into her unprovoked personal attack against Ms. Pike. 7. An analysis of her effectiveness in her position. 8. An analysis into the lie that no other person at her office is equipped to fulfill the role of DPP. And 9. An investigation into the allegation raised by Ms. Pike and Ms. Llewellyn. Buchanan went further. If the DPP's allegation against Ms. Pike is true, and even if it's untrue, by her conduct in releasing that press release has disqualified herself from holding the role of DPP. He notes she would have misused her power to make an eccentric person run amok on the defense, the court, and the country for her own gain. The party says in light of the foregoing issues, the DPP should do the honorable thing and step aside to allow the investigation to be completed. Kimberly Henry for CVM Live.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Antigua's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has renewed calls for former colonial powers in Europe to pay reparations or compensation for the transatlantic slave trade. He made the call while delivering his address to the nation to mark Emancipation Day. Garfield Burford of ABS News reports.
August 1, 1834 was when the 1833 Abolition of Slavery Act came into force. For more than 200 years up to that point, millions of enslaved people disembarked in Britain's sugar-producing colonies in the Caribbean, including more than 1 million people in Jamaica alone. Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown points to the historical significance and contemporary inspiration of the day and the black world's struggle for recognition and justice.
This struggle continues in the international environment that is united against the interests of small island states like ours and their citizens. We celebrate this day as we also celebrate the 50th anniversary of CARICOM, the regional movement of 20 Caribbean countries committed to cooperation and collaboration on actions that enhance economic integration, foreign policy coordination, human and social development, and national security.
Prime Minister Brown shows the clear link between the past and the present collective experiences of Caribbean people, a shared history which now underpins the unity of purpose of the Caribbean community, CARICOM. He says the regional bloc stands united in all global spaces in the contemporary struggle against injustices. That's when he made a pointed call to the former European colonial powers to provide reparations or compensation for the transatlantic slave trade.
We make no apologies about this. Emancipation recognizes the centuries of enslavement, that crime against humanity that robbed us of basic human dignity, which reduced us to chattel, that is chattel property, and extracted blood, sweat, and tears to provide the wealth that developed Europe.
The Prime Minister pays respects to the African ancestors who endured whips and chains and whose resistance and sacrifice helped clear the path to freedom.
It is in their honor, in their memory, that the nations of this Caribbean, among which Antigua and Barbuda stands tall, say to Europe, in a non-confrontational manner, you owe us for 200 years of free labor and you must pay reparations. The emancipation celebrations of today usually happens annually during our carnival celebrations. And I use this opportunity to invoke the message of emancipation into our festival and hope that we will be mindful at all times that we really are our brothers and sisters' keeper. We are brothers and sisters and should treat each other with the same regard that exists in our families, regardless of political affiliation.
The head of government says the ongoing carnival celebrations provide an opportunity to recognize and relive the cultural strengths of our people. He also praises the Antigua and Barbuda Reparations Support Commission on 10 years of unwavering commitment to promoting freedom, dignity, and human rights, with a push for reparations being a crucial plan.
As of midnight on Monday and going forward, the wearing of masks at all public and private hospitals and medical clinics in Trinidad and Tobago will no longer be mandatory.
The Ministry of Health said that the Public Health Regulation 2019 novel coronavirus will end at midnight on July 31, 2023. The World Health Organization announced the end of the global pandemic on May 5, 2023, declaring it an established and ongoing health issue, which no longer constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. The Ministry of Health, however, reminded the public, particularly the vulnerable, to continue to maintain the principles and practice of good hygiene, such as hand washing and social distancing when ill. Thank you for watching. I'm Tiana Cole.
In a related item, back in the Bahamas, Dr. Stacey Bevan Langs of Grand Bahama comments on COVID-19 no longer being a public health emergency in the country. ZNS's Ashokant reports.
In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic took the world by surprise, forcing it to shut down completely. Now, some 3 years later, the Minister of Health and Wellness, the Honorable Dr. Michael Darville, confirming that they have noticed a decline in PCR testing. Clinical Director here on the island, Dr. Stacey Bevans-Lang, standing with the Minister of Health, noting that COVID-19 is no longer a public health threat.
We are now treating it as one of the viral infections such as the regular flu. However, it still does have an impact on your health, especially if you have chronic ailments such as cardiac or respiratory issues.
This decision coming after the United States President Joe Biden ended their COVID-19 public health emergency on May 11th of this year, a move that the Bahamas followed.
That in turn would have also filtered over to the Bahamas. So we have not been enforcing the use of masks in public, only when a person comes to any of the healthcare facilities, they are required to wear masks.
And as part of their ongoing vigilance, Dr. Bevans-Lang says they are continuing to test individuals who present flu-like symptoms when they come to the hospital. When asked about a potential uptick in COVID-19 cases on the island, she clarifies.
Personally, I cannot say we have seen an increase in the COVID cases. I would say the numbers have just flatlined or steadied out. But if you don't test for it, you won't find it. And so if we say we're now seeing a spike, it just means that more persons are getting tested.
Dr. Bevins Lang is also reminding the public to continue following the safety protocols, which include wearing a mask and maintaining good hand hygiene. For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Madra Quant.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.